What if your next trip to the grocery store ends with you standing in front of an empty shelf? Not because of panic buying, not because of a natural disaster, but because certain canned foods are quietly being phased out. Without any announcement at all. It's already happening. Across supply chains, manufacturers are reducing production of specific canned goods due to rising costs, ingredient shortages, and changes in consumer demand. And the strange part is, most shoppers won't notice until the product is already gone. Today, we're counting down 12 canned foods you may struggle to find after the 1st of September 2026, and why they're quietly disappearing from shelves. Let's start with one of the most common pantry staples in America. Number 12, canned corn. Canned corn looks like it will always be there. Cheap, simple, and used in countless meals, but behind the scenes, things are starting to shift. Farmers are facing higher fertilizer costs, unpredictable weather patterns, and rising transportation expenses. That doesn't make canned corn disappear overnight, but it does make manufacturers rethink how much they produce and which package sizes are worth keeping. And when that happens, the first thing to go isn't the product itself, it's variety, fewer brands, fewer discounts, and fewer options on the shelf. Which means by the time shoppers notice, the cheap, always available version may already be gone, and the next item is even more surprising, because most people don't even think of it as a canned food. Number 11. Canned soup. Canned soup has always been a fallback meal, something people grab when prices go up or time runs short. But that popularity is exactly what's changing how it's produced. Food companies are quietly simplifying their soup lines. That means fewer specialty flavors, and more focus on only the top-selling varieties. The reason is simple. Production costs for ingredients like meat, dairy, and vegetables have increased significantly. So instead of raising prices too aggressively, companies reduce complexity, and that's when products start disappearing quietly. Not all at once, but one by one. And if your favorite soup suddenly isn't on the shelf anymore, it usually doesn't come back. Next on the list is something most people don't realize is at risk at all, but it's already being affected behind the scenes. Number 10. Canned beans. Canned beans are one of the cheapest protein sources in the grocery store. Black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, they've been stable for years. But stability doesn't mean immunity. Bean production depends heavily on weather conditions and global shipping routes. And when costs rise, manufacturers often reduce lower margin varieties first. That means fewer organic options, fewer specialty beans, and sometimes even smaller can sizes replacing standard ones. At first it looks harmless, but over time the shelf starts to shrink, and once a product category becomes optimized, it rarely goes back to how it was. And now we're moving into something more serious, a category that has already seen major supply disruptions in recent years. Number 9. Canned tuna. Canned tuna has been a household essential for decades, but it's quietly becoming more complicated to produce. Fishing regulations are stricter, fuel costs for fishing fleets are higher, and global demand hasn't slowed down, so manufacturers respond the same way they always do. They cut back on less profitable versions. That means fewer flavored tuna packs, fewer premium cuts, and sometimes fewer shipments reaching certain regions. The shelf still looks full today, but the selection is already changing, and most shoppers won't notice until their usual brand is suddenly gone. Next, we move into something even more sensitive, because it's tied directly to global supply chains and energy costs. Number 8. Canned tomatoes. Canned tomatoes are everywhere in kitchens. Pasta sauce, soups, stews. But tomato production is becoming more expensive every year. Weather conditions in key growing regions have become less predictable, and processing costs, especially energy, keep rising. Instead of removing products completely, manufacturers quietly reduce the number of available SKUs. That means fewer diced tomato options, fewer organic versions, and fewer store-brand alternatives. It's not a sudden disappearance. It's a slow reduction, and that's what makes it so easy to miss. Until one day, Your usual can simply isn't there anymore. Number 7. Canned fruit cocktail. Canned fruit cocktail used to be a lunchbox classic. Peaches, pears, grapes, and cherries all mixed in syrup. Simple, cheap, and easy to store. But this is one of the categories quietly shrinking first. The reason isn't just cost, it's demand. More shoppers are switching to fresh fruit or low-sugar alternatives, and when demand drops, manufacturers don't always remove the product completely. Instead, they reduce production runs, fewer shipments, fewer varieties, and in some cases, fewer pack sizes available in stores. At first, you might still see it on the shelf, but only one brand, and only one option. Until even that becomes inconsistent. And what disappears next is something many people don't expect at all, because it used to be considered a survival food. Number 6. Canned peaches. Canned peaches have been around for generations, especially in households where fresh fruit wasn't always available year-round. But the situation has changed. Peach production is highly sensitive to weather. A single bad season can reduce supply significantly, and when that happens, canning companies prioritize larger contracts first. That means retail stores often get reduced allocations, not zero, but less than before. Over time, that leads to smaller shelf space and fewer choices for shoppers. What makes this category interesting is that the price doesn't always spike immediately. Instead, availability slowly shrinks. Until one day, you realize your usual brand hasn't been restocked for weeks, and that's exactly how the next item is starting to behave. But for a completely different reason. Number 5. Canned luncheon meat, Spam-style products. Canned meat is one of the most stable categories in the grocery store, or at least it used to be. Products like luncheon meat became popular because they last long and don't require refrigeration. But production costs have been steadily increasing. Meat prices, packaging materials, and energy used in processing facilities. Instead of raising prices sharply, some manufacturers reduce distribution to lower demand regions. That means fewer shipments reach certain stores consistently, and fewer promotions appear in weekly ads. The product doesn't disappear completely, but it becomes less reliable, which is often worse than disappearing altogether, because shoppers can't plan around inconsistency. And now we move into a category that many people don't even realize is under pressure until they suddenly need it. Number 4. Canned coconut milk. Canned coconut milk is a key ingredient in many cuisines. Soups, curries, desserts. But supply depends heavily on imports from Southeast Asia, and that makes it vulnerable to shipping costs, weather disruptions, and trade fluctuations. When costs rise, retailers often respond by trimming down premium and imported variations first. That means fewer organic options, fewer brand choices, and sometimes only 1 or 2 versions left on the shelf. This is the kind of product that doesn't feel at risk, until you go looking for it and realize selection has quietly shrunk, and the next item is even more surprising, because it's tied directly to global dairy supply pressure. Number 3. Canned evaporated milk. Evaporated milk has been a baking essential for decades, especially in holiday recipes and desserts. But dairy markets have become more volatile in recent years. Feed costs for cattle have increased. Energy prices for processing have gone up, and transportation costs continue to fluctuate. So manufacturers often respond by consolidating production. Fewer brands, fewer specialty versions, and sometimes fewer shipments to smaller retailers. It doesn't disappear overnight, but it slowly becomes harder to find your preferred brand. And by the time shoppers notice, it's already been replaced with alternatives. Now we're entering the final stretch, where the most noticeable changes in canned foods are happening. Number 2. Canned chicken. Canned chicken is one of those items people rely on without thinking. Quick meals, emergency food storage, budget cooking. But demand has surged in recent years, and when demand rises faster than supply, retailers become selective. They prioritize the highest turnover brands and reduce slower sellers. That means fewer variety packs, fewer store brand options, and sometimes empty gaps between restocks. The shelf still looks familiar, but it's not as full as it used to be. And finally, the last item is not just about cost or demand, it's about long-term global supply pressure that affects everything above it. Number 1. Canned mixed vegetables. Canned mixed vegetables seem like the most stable product on this list. Carrots, peas, green beans, corn. A simple pantry staple. But it's also one of the most quietly adjusted categories in the entire grocery system. Why? Because it depends on multiple crops at once. If even one vegetable becomes expensive or hard to source, the entire mix is affected. That's why manufacturers often simplify recipes first or reduce production volumes instead of announcing shortages. For shoppers, that means fewer brands, fewer sizes, and sometimes inconsistent availability depending on the region. It doesn't look like a product in danger until you realize the selection is shrinking year after year. And that's the real pattern across this entire list. Not disappearance, but reduction. Less variety, less consistency, and slower restocking than before. The smartest approach isn't panic buying. It's awareness. Buy what you already use. Pay attention to what quietly disappears from shelves, because by the time it becomes obvious, it's usually already too late to act cheaply.